A single gesture. A wave of the hand. On December 20, 1943, high above the frozen landscape of wartime Germany, a German fighter pilot makes a choice that defies every expectation of combat, every rule of engagement. He sees a crippled American bomber, its fuselage riddled, its crew bleeding, and he does not fire. Instead, he offers a gesture of mercy, a silent command for survival. How can a sworn enemy, in the brutal crucible of total war, choose compassion over the kill? This is the paradox of honor in the heart of conflict. The date is December 20, 1943. The setting is the unforgiving skies over Nazi Germany. Our central character is Oberleutnant Franz Stigler, a seasoned fighter pilot with the Luftwaffe, assigned to Jagdgeschwader 27. Born on August 21, 1915, in Amberg, Bavaria, Stigler's life has been steeped in aviation from an early age. His father, a veteran pilot and observer from the First World War, instilled in him a profound love for flight. By the age of 12, Franz Stigler is flying gliders, and by 18, he pilots his first biplane. He later joins Deutsche Lufthansa, the precursor to Lufthansa, as a commercial pilot, before transitioning to a civil flight instructor for the Luftwaffe in 1937. Stigler is an unusual figure. He is not driven by Nazi ideology, his family holds anti-Nazi sentiments. Instead, he fights for his homeland, a German patriot. A deep-seated code of honor guides him, a code reinforced by his former commanding officer, Gustav Rodel, who famously declared, "If I hear of one of you shooting a man in a parachute, I'll shoot you myself." Stigler carries this principle into every engagement, a belief that warfare has rules, that there is a line even in the act of killing. He is already an ace, credited with 28 confirmed aerial victories over Allied aircraft in both North Africa and Europe. On this cold December day, he is just one more victory away from earning the coveted Knight's Cross, one of Germany's highest military honors. Meanwhile, thousands of feet above, another young pilot faces his first baptism of fire. Second Lieutenant Charlie Brown, a 21-year-old farm boy from Weston, West Virginia, commands a Boeing B-17F Flying Fortress, affectionately nicknamed Ye Old Pub. Brown is part of the United States Army Air Force's 527th Bombardment Squadron, 379th Bombardment Group, based at RAF Kimbolton in England. This is Brown's inaugural mission as an aircraft commander, a perilous journey into the heart of the Third Reich. He and his 9-man crew are flying Purple Heart Corner, a position on the edge of the bomber formation known for its extreme vulnerability to enemy attacks. The odds are stacked against them from the start. The mission objective is critical: the destruction of the Focke-Wulf 190 aircraft production facility in Bremen, Germany. This industrial target is heavily fortified, defended by more than 250 anti-aircraft guns. The weather itself is a formidable enemy. It is a bitterly cold, overcast winter day, with temperatures plummeting to -60 to -70 degrees Fahrenheit at their cruising altitude of 27,300 feet. The air is thin, hostile, and merciless. As the bomber stream approaches Bremen, the flak begins. A dense, lethal curtain of explosions erupts around the American formation. Ye Old Pub, in its exposed position, takes direct hits. Shrapnel tears through the plexiglass nose, shattering it and exposing the forward crew to the freezing blast. The No. 2 engine is knocked out completely, its propeller feathered uselessly. The No. 4 engine suffers significant damage, frequently overspeeding, demanding constant attention from the flight engineer to prevent its complete failure. Control surfaces are compromised, the bomber's stability already threatened. The 10-minute bomb run over the target feels like an eternity. With bombs away, Ye Old Pub struggles to maintain its position. The damage is too severe, the drag too great. The bomber falls out of the protective embrace of the formation, becoming a straggler, a lone, wounded animal in a sky teeming with predators. No one believed it was possible for a bomber to survive such an initial battering and continue. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. Almost immediately, the German Luftwaffe pounces. A relentless series of attacks begins, a swarm of 12 to 15 Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf Fw-190s. These highly agile fighters circle and dive, pouring cannon fire and machine gun rounds into the already crippled B-17. The attacks last for more than 10 harrowing minutes. The No. 3 engine takes a direct hit, now operating at only half power. The oxygen system, vital for survival at this altitude, is damaged, along with the hydraulic and electrical systems. The bomber's defensive firepower, designed to repel such attacks, is severely diminished. The extreme cold freezes the lubricants in many of the 11.50 caliber machine guns, rendering them useless. Only the 2 top turret guns and 1 forward-firing nose gun remain operational. Chaos reigns inside, ye old pub. The tail gunner, Sergeant Hugh Eckenrode, is killed, his blood freezing into icicles around his silent machine guns. All but one of the crew members in the rear of the aircraft are incapacitated by wounds or exposure to the frigid air. Lieutenant Brown himself takes a bullet fragment in his right shoulder. At one point, disoriented and starved of oxygen, he loses consciousness, and the bomber plunges into a steep nosedive. Miraculously, he regains awareness at just 3,000 feet, pulling the B-17 out of its potentially fatal dive, narrowly avoiding collision with the houses of Oldenburg. The plane is so low it shears shingles off rooftops. The battered, ye old pub, is a ghost in the sky, a testament to its robust design and the sheer will of its crew. It flies now at a much lower altitude, below 1,000 feet for a time, then slowly climbing to approximately 3,000 feet, desperately seeking denser, more breathable air. Inside, the scene is grim. The tail section is a mangled ruin, the right elevator missing entirely, and half of the rudder torn away. The fuselage is perforated with gaping holes, allowing the brutal winter wind to rip through the aircraft. Wounded men huddle, some attempting to administer first aid to their comrades. The remaining operational guns are manned by exhausted, injured airmen, their faces etched with fear and determination. As the B-17 limps towards what they hope is the North Sea, it passes perilously close to Jever Airfield, a German fighter base. On the ground, Oberleutnant Franz Stigler has just returned from a successful sortie, having already downed 2 B-17s earlier in the day. He is refueling and rearming his Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6, a bullet from an American .50 caliber machine gun lodged in its radiator, risking engine overheating. He is just 1 kill away from achieving the Knight's Cross. The sight of the lone, heavily damaged bomber lumbering overhead presents an irresistible opportunity, an easy kill to secure his distinguished award. Franz Stigler climbs into his Bf-109 and takes off, quickly closing the distance to the struggling B-17. As he approaches, he prepares for the final, decisive attack. His finger hovers over the trigger. But then, he sees it. The extent of the damage is horrifying. Through the gaping holes in the bomber's fuselage, he can see the frantic activity of the crew, not manning guns, but tending to their wounded. The tail gunner's position is silent, the guns frozen and covered in frozen blood. Many of the B-17's other gun turrets are lifeless, their barrels pointing aimlessly. Stigler's mind races. His orders are clear: shoot down the enemy. Yet, a profound hesitation grips him. He recalls the words of his mentor, Gustav Rodel, spoken with unwavering conviction. You follow the rules of war for you, not your enemy. You fight by rules to keep your humanity. Rodel's warning against shooting a defenseless man in a parachute echoes in his thoughts. What he sees before him now feels no different. These American airmen are not a threat. They're half-dead people, their aircraft a flying wreck. To shoot them down now, Stigler thinks, would be like shooting at a parachute, an act devoid of honor and steeped in murder. This is not vengeance, not a kill he desires. The Knight's Cross, so close, suddenly means less than his personal code. He knows that if he fails to engage, and this act of mercy is discovered, he faces immediate court-martial and likely execution for treason. Yet, the thought of adding these defenseless men to his tally is repulsive. Stigler pulls alongside the B-17, flying in close formation on its port side wing. He is so close that Lieutenant Brown, peering out his right window, freezes in terror. Brown's co-pilot, Spencer, Pinky, Luke, exclaims, "My God, this is a nightmare." Brown agrees, convinced this is their end. The German pilot, however, is not firing. Stigler gestures emphatically, trying to communicate through the perspex. He points downwards, then makes a sweeping motion, trying to signal Brown to land his crippled bomber. He is attempting to direct them to a nearby German airfield, or perhaps even towards neutral Sweden, believing the B-17 has no chance of making it back to England. But Brown and his co-pilot do not understand. They interpret the gestures as a demand to surrender, a terrifying proposition deep within enemy territory. Brown, still unsure of Stigler's intentions, gives a cautious order to his dorsal turret gunner: target the German fighter, but do not open fire. It is a warning, a desperate plea for the German to back off. Stigler, seeing the turret guns slowly train on him, realizes his efforts to guide them to a safe landing are futile. He understands Brown's fear and reluctance. He cannot force them. His resolve hardens. He will not shoot them down, but he can still protect them. He begins to fly in tight formation with "Ye Old Pub," positioning his Bf-109 strategically. If you were Franz Stigler, with the Knight's Cross within your grasp, and the certainty of execution if your actions were discovered, would you have made the same choice? Tell me in the comments. For the next several minutes, the strange, improbable escort continues. Stigler flies so close that German anti-aircraft units on the ground, recognizing the distinctive silhouette of his Messerschmitt Bf-109, hold their fire. They assume the B-17 is either a captured aircraft or under the escort of a friendly fighter, a ruse that saves the American bomber from further devastating flak. Stigler guides "Ye Old Pub" past dangerous German coastal defenses, ensuring no other Luftwaffe fighters intercept the vulnerable bomber. He is risking everything, his life, his career, his family's safety, to uphold a personal code of honor in the midst of a war that often seems to have forgotten such principles. Inside the B-17, the crew remains in a state of bewildered terror. They are exhausted, wounded, and oxygen-deprived. They cannot comprehend why the German pilot is not attacking. Is it a trap? Is he waiting for something? Their navigation equipment is destroyed, their compass unreliable. They are flying blind, relying solely on the direction of their improbable escort. What does it tell you about a man that he made that choice with everything to lose, not for glory, but for a principle? Tell me in the comments. The journey continues, a silent, tense dance between predator and prey, now turned protector and protected. Stigler maintains his position, his eyes constantly scanning the skies, not for the B-17's demise, but for any sign of other German aircraft that might undo his extraordinary act of mercy. He knows that if another German fighter appears, he will have to engage it, or risk exposing his secret. The air is thick with unspoken questions, with the weight of an impossible decision. The battered B-17, with its remaining two engines sputtering, struggles onward, each minute a victory against the odds. The crew of "Ye Old Pub" can only guess at the intentions of the German pilot flying silently beside them. They are in uncharted territory, a moment of humanity piercing the brutality of war. Which side of this story do you think history got wrong? The expectation of merciless combat, or the capacity for unexpected compassion? Tell me in the comments. Finally, after an agonizing period of approximately 10 minutes, during which they traverse German-occupied territory, the two aircraft reach the North Sea coast. The icy expanse of open water stretches before them, a dangerous but familiar path towards England. Stigler, having guided "Ye Old Pub" past the last of the German defenses, knows his part in this extraordinary drama is complete. He can go no further without risking his own life and exposing his act of defiance. He looks across at Lieutenant Brown in the cockpit of the B-17. Their eyes meet, if only for a fleeting moment across the vast emptiness of the sky and the glass of their cockpits. Stigler raises his hand, a clear, decisive salute. It is a gesture of respect, an acknowledgement of Brown's crew's resilience, and a silent farewell. With that, Oberleutnant Franz Stigler rolls his Messerschmitt Bf 109 G6 over, a swift, elegant maneuver, and peels away, turning back towards German airspace. He disappears into the overcast sky, leaving Ye Old Pub to continue its solitary, arduous journey home. As he flies away, Stigler whispers to himself, "Good luck. You're in God's hands now." Lieutenant Brown, watching the German fighter depart, is left with a profound sense of bewilderment and an overwhelming relief. The immediate threat has vanished, replaced by an inexplicable act of chivalry. Ye Old Pub, with its two remaining engines struggling, one still overspeeding intermittently, must now traverse approximately 250 miles of storm-tossed North Sea. The bomber is barely holding together, its controls sluggish and unresponsive. The crew, exhausted and wounded, fights for every foot of altitude, every degree of heading. They are flying on raw courage and the sheer will to survive. Against all odds, the crippled B-17 crosses the treacherous waters. Hours later, with barely any fuel remaining, Lieutenant Brown nurses Ye Old Pub down onto a runway at RAF Seething, near the English coast, the home of the 448th Bomb Group. The landing is rough, but successful. 9 of the 10 crew members have survived, though many are severely injured. Only tail gunner Sergeant Hugh Eckenrode has perished in the initial fighter attacks. The incredible incident on December 20, 1943, remains a secret for many years. Upon landing, Lieutenant Brown and his crew are debriefed by intelligence officers, recounting the harrowing mission and the inexplicable encounter with the German pilot. For reasons that remain unclear, the debriefing is classified secret, effectively burying the story in official archives. Brown himself is advised to keep silent about the German pilot, fearing that such an account of enemy compassion might be misinterpreted, perhaps even undermining morale or suggesting weakness. Franz Stigler, for his part, never reports the incident. To do so would have meant certain court-martial and execution for aiding the enemy. He continues to fly combat missions throughout the war, eventually joining Jagdverband 44, a jet fighter squadron, and surviving the conflict. After the war, he emigrates to Canada, settling in Vancouver, British Columbia, and starts a successful business. For decades, the memory of the German pilot who spared his life haunts Charles Brown. In the late 1980s, driven by a desire to understand and thank the man who saved him, Brown begins a meticulous search. He places advertisements in newsletters for veteran fighter pilots, hoping to reach the anonymous German ace. He includes specific details of the encounter, withholding the exact location where they parted as a test to verify any potential claimant. In January 1990, Franz Stigler, then living in Canada, reads one of these notices. The details resonate deeply. He immediately knows it is the American bomber he escorted so many years ago. Stigler writes a letter to Brown, confirming every aspect of the story. Brown receives the letter and, overwhelmed with emotion, immediately calls Stigler. Their first conversation is filled with tears and disbelief. "My God," Brown reportedly says, "it's you." Stigler, remembering the bomber's condition, admits, "When I let you go over the sea, I thought you'd never make it." The two men meet in person, a reunion described by Brown as like meeting a family member, like a brother you haven't seen for 40 years. They discover a startling fact. They had been living less than 200 miles apart for much of the time since the war, Brown in Seattle, Washington, and Stigler in Vancouver, British Columbia. Charles Brown and Franz Stigler forge a deep and lasting friendship, often visiting each other and sharing their incredible story with other veterans. Their bond, born from an act of mercy in the skies of war, endures for nearly 2 decades. Both men pass away in 2008, within months of each other, forever linked by the extraordinary events of December 20, 1943. In their obituaries, they are each mentioned as the other's special brother. If this story moved you, if you think these men deserve to be remembered, leave one word in the comments. Honor. Subscribe for a new forgotten story every week.